With this being the week of V-Rising's launch and it being a massive survival RPG, there's a lot of stuff new players can actually miss in just the very few first hour or so of playing it, from your tutorial area and a little bit of your starting area as well. So in today's episode, I want to just cover over a couple quick tips just to get all the new players ready to go, ready to start grinding, just for more of a beginner's guide. And throughout the livelihood of V-Rising, I'll actually do more tips for other parts of the game, because there's a lot to take into this game, so it's going to be a lot of time to really dissect a lot of tips for you guys. Welcome to Chaotic Inc., and this is your host KSDTV. And if you're new here, just know that as a community, we cover all RPGs of all kinds. We do guides, news, and gameplays on PC and mobile for all your RPG likes. So I'm going to break this video up in a couple of sections. So one, we're going to worry about the actual tutorial tips and just the main tutorial that you do, and as well as the starting area of Farbane Woods and a couple things I've noticed throughout my playthrough when I was in the closed beta test. So starting off with tutorial tips. So the first tip that I have while you're in your tutorial area after you wake up from your coffin is to kill all the mobs and just farm them as much as you can before you go to Farbane Woods. I feel like this is probably the most substantial thing you can do, because one, it's there for a reason. There's no time limit on actually doing this, so farm it as much as you can, because why? When you look at the top left hand corner, we have the quests. All of that stuff applies to you, and you can carry everything that you have received from that tutorial island, per se, from my old school RuneScape fans out there. That tutorial, you can bring that with you into Farbane Woods, and that can already set you beyond the whatever you was going to start when you get to Farbane Woods. So first things first, just kill all the mobs you can, from the skeletons, the little zombie guys. Just kill them all, because they give out bones. The bones, you're going to need it. And as well as, here's another thing, destroy all the trees and the stones, the plant fibers, do all of that. Destroy all of those as much as you can, because why? Your stones, the trees to get your lumber, and the plant fibers, that all carries over to when you're going to build your base, which we'll be talking about in a few here. Next thing to do while you're on Tutorial Island is you're going to notice there's a lot of rats there. They will respawn just like the mobs, so farm the rats. The reason why I say farm the rats, because that's technically your first initial food source before heading into Farbane Woods, before you get sent out to the woods to go deal with the wolves and the other baddies that's in the woods. Farm the rats, because the more you eat the rats, it fills your blood gauge up, the little blood pool. And from that blood pool, you can utilize that to actually heal yourself. Now, it's detrimental to stay fully hydrated with blood, because when you're thirsty or you're starving from blood, you will actually start to die. And the more you starve, you'll die even faster. So just stockpile on the rats you find, and that will have you set up ready before you start hopping in, feeding on the wolves or all the enemies and all that good stuff. Now, after you do all that stuff from the tutorial island, and you get yourself set up and you're like, okay, you feel like you have enough. Remember, there are stone graves that you can actually loot, and you can loot the graves themselves and get even more stone, more lumber. So all of this, it's designed to have you already ready to go before even entering Farbane Woods. So definitely explore as much as Tutorial Island as you can. Keep farming the mobs. I feel like as a starting player, this is literally the best time, the best moment of peace, without having to worry about all the other players, because you can't build in this area. You can only just kill the mobs and farm all the lumber you can, farm all the stone you can. You will already have everything stockpiled and ready to go by the time you get to Farbane Woods to enter that gate. Now, speaking of Farbane Woods, I have the next tip for you guys, which is, soon as you enter to start Farbane Woods, you get prompted with a little map. Which side of Farbane Woods do you want to start, whether the west side or the east side? Now, out of my entire time playing this game, I feel like starting on the east side of Farbane Woods actually granted me a little bit more leeway, per se. So the east side, I feel like there's just a little bit more open areas that allows you to have a good starting base from there. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want to start on the west side, I even started on the west side. I kept redoing it, so I'll start on the west side of one server, and I'll start on the east side of the next server, and I'll do vice versa just to see what it was like, see what the starting area is like. I've noticed that the east side of the area has a little bit less higher end mobs that you will find. It's a lot more open area, so if there are other players creating bases, you still will have a nice spot. Because I've ran into certain situations on the west side of Farbane Woods where there's so many players over there, it's hard to really get a nice big open area, and it's all cluttered, so you have to kind of start doing a little bit of terraforming and destroy the trees, destroy the logs, do all that extra stuff. Now, like I said, this is completely subjective. If you want to start on the west side, you can, but just know I had an easier time on the east side of things. Now, the next part of this tip, we go into the next tip, dying in this game. So, I died a lot, but here's the weird part. So, I currently have died, so let's say if you set your base up, you got your castle heart in there, everything's fine. You go to log out. Now, my mistake was I logged out and I'll come back and my vampire will already be dead and my housing will already be gone. Like it doesn't even exist anymore. And after talking with my good friend Vulcan, come to find out is that the castle heart that powers your entire base actually has a timer. So you have to make sure it stays powered on to the time you come back to the game. So no, the game is still running even though you're gone. Now, granted, yes, this can happen in both PvP and PvE servers. So if you want to be at peace, I guess, try joining a private server, because a lot of people have been doing this to a lot of newer players that I've heard, where they'll wait to log out. It kind of, if you guys have ever played like Rust or anything of that nature, it's the same rule applies to that. Like you got your base, you got to lock it down because people can loot it and stuff like that. The same rule will apply to this no matter what. So if you want to have peace and quiet, join a private server or lock down your castle heart. So no matter what happens, if it's nice and powered, so next time you come back, you'll be good to go. But I just wanted to let you guys know, be careful when logging out, because I done logged out so many times where I'm like, oh, I should be perfectly fine. I got my door here, castle heart here, and I never knew why, and it took so many tries. So that's why I'm glad I'm making this tips and tricks video, so people can understand, all right, this is what not to do. Do what I do better. Do better than me, okay? So let's jump into the next part, which will be the last tip of our tutorial tips, and it's do the main quests. Do the quest line. It's there for a reason. Yes, you'll be farming, you'll be grinding out, doing everything you need to do, but do the quests. It will help you level up. It's a nice smooth walkthrough through everything you need to do. Do the quest line, farm as you need to go. This is the most common sense tip ever, but just do it. The quest line is there. Make sure you claim them, follow it thoroughly. It will definitely help you get the gist of things, because this game doesn't hold your hand on telling you how to play the game. So it doesn't really tell you how to do much. It's just very simple, vague tips here or there to teach you how to play the game. So like I said, stay tuned. I will continue dissecting this game further and further so we can be able to fully understand the world of Vardoran. So let's jump into the next subject of this video, which is the gameplay tips. So this is ranging from what I've noticed from just outright playing the game, the combat, stuff like that. So the first tip I have for you guys is perfecting your combat. Now, perfecting your combat, it's weird. So when you're fighting, the camera is sort of on a free aim. So in order to actually lock down the camera, you have to right click and hold it, and then circle your enemy and then do your attacks. I feel like this is the most optimal way of handling multiple enemies, and as well as circling and angling yourself into a better position when fighting different mobs. Like from the wolves, they're very fast paced, so you got to be quick on your toes. The skeletons, they like to stick a little bit too far in the back, so it help you kind of crowd them and stop yourself from getting shot in the face by arrows. The bears, it's a very perfect way of handling bears, since the bears have a big telltale sign of when they're going to attack, which is they lift up and then slam back down into the ground. So it help you get in and out. Definitely hit the spacebar, which allows you to basically not a teleport, but basically a vanish out. I utilize it strategically, whether I'm trying to get in closer or trying to move back closer. So definitely utilize your spacebar. It helps out a lot. Now, the next tip I have for you guys is Farbane. It's just all about Farbane Woods. So here's my next thing for you. Don't venture off too far into Farbane Woods. Like I said in a previous tip, follow the quest line, because if you start to venture off, you will start to notice that there's a specific enemy types that you physically can't fight yet, unless you have multiple people that can take care of it. I had a treant, which had these skulls, so I already knew that he was going to clap me hard. So I was just like, please, for the love of God, don't kill me. It took me and another vampire almost a good 2 to 3 minutes just to kill him, because his health bar was massive, and we both were... He was level 20, I was level 15, and we still couldn't kill him thoroughly, so it took time. I'm guessing these are particularly world bosses in a way where you will need more people to be able to handle these guys, but be careful venturing off too far, especially if you're going up like the mountains and stuff. You will come across like stone golems, the treants, the Venus flytrap guys that spit poison. All of these guys have a skull next to them, so they're way above your level, and they will clap you quicker than you can say anything. And they have already clapped me. I've already had to run. If you're going to be careful with setting up your houses near these areas, because they will hunt you down and they will kill you, and they will break it down until you have to figure it out. So that comes into making sure you have a perfect house setup, which goes back to my further tip. You have enough resources to set this house up. Make sure you set like I say, if you head into the east side, there's a lot of open field that is very early on. It's close to the waypoint, so it allows you to teleport. It's a lot of open field. Go over there, set your castle hard up, and start building your base. It should be enough room, so even though there's other players, say if you're in a busy server or you're in a low populated server, you will still have enough room. That's why I feel like the east side is a little bit more beneficial for newer players. The west side, I feel like if you already know what you're doing, you know what you need to do, you know how to take care of things, then sure, go on the west side. But like I said, that's just my subjective opinion. You guys want to go either or, you definitely still can. Now, the next thing is, remember that quest line I was telling you about? So here's another gameplay feature tip I have for you guys. So I tested out the true uses of the sword, the axes, and as well as the mace. So utilizing the axes, obviously enough, utilizing the axes, don't get me wrong, they have a decent mediums attack speed when you're fighting, but utilize them on chopping down trees. You actually net more lumber from using axes. You get almost double per hit, comparable to using like the mace or the sword, where you get maybe 1 to 2 per hit, and it stacks from there. So I've seen that it's more beneficial to use axes on trees. Use the maces on stone. You still get double the stone per hit of each attack you do on the stones, and it destroys the stones much quicker. The sword is kind of useless when it comes to crafting or just gathering resources. So make sure, like I said, early on when you're in Tutorial Island, utilize the sword to break down stone. It's going to take forever, trust me, but just get it, just do it. Stockpiling that, but once you start building and crafting the axe and the mace, utilize the axe to basically enhance your way of chopping down trees, getting more lumber, and chopping it down faster so you're not sitting there all day. Utilizing the mace so the mace can get the stone, same vice versa. Then we go into my next tip. Now, this is the biggest tip, the sun. Now, it is a day and night cycle, and as we all know, vampires are fairly weak to sun. So here's my thing. You can still move in the daytime where the sun is still out, it's beaming hard. Now, you have to move thoroughly through the shadows, because if you stay in the sun or the range of the sun too long, the game kind of gives you a telltale sign like, hey, so a beam will appear on you, but it won't do any ticks of damage until a couple seconds later. And once you're fully in the sun, it will kill you so fastly. Like, I've never seen my health bar drop so fast my entire life. So move in and out through the shadows. If you want, utilize your vanish technique, which is on your space bar. Utilize that to get across things much faster. It's there for a reason. It gives you a movement speed. And for movement speeds, make sure to feed on the wolves or the creatures of Farbane Woods, because they give you a percentage of movement speed. So from feeding on the wolves, and from utilizing your spacebar, you can get in and out. Now, of course, last thing on the feeding, you also can feed on anything. Just get their health low enough, but just know if like, let's use the wolves for example. So say if you have one wolf here that is at 5% and you have another wolf here at 9%, and you fed on the wolf at the 9%, and then you're like, all right, bet, I'm gonna go get the wolf on the 5%, and you go to feed on him, it will drop you down to whatever your previous wolf was, so that 5%. So be careful when you're feeding on just anything, and take in mind of the percentage. The percentage will then play into the part of whatever the spec or the ability that comes with it. The last tip that I got for you guys is silver. Now, silver as in like coins, don't pick them up. It's all a trap. It's literally a trap. I feel like the bandits, they leave silver there so we can pick them up, but the silver actually damages us. If we, however many silver coins we are carrying, it would damage you with that many ticks of health. So just be careful with picking up random pieces of silver. It is not the currency you want, and silver plays a big part in Silverlight Hills, where the humans are the most active since they use silver bullets and stuff like that. But let's go into like my last final thoughts of this. So far, you guys just have fun. Utilize these tips as much as you can when you're starting into these brand new servers, where V-Rising is getting an influx of new players like almost every hour. It's currently right now #1 on Steam. If you guys want to check out my entire playlist of V-Rising stuff, from the development of the V-Rising, and as well as talking about the DLC that actually launched on day 1, which is the Eldest Bloodline DLC, I'd definitely say check it in the top right hand corner. But with that being said, guys, it's been your host KSDTV here at Chaotic Inc. signing out. Peace.
I don't sleep, that's so weak, don't plan to rest. I'm from a hood where you die if you don't pack a vest. No culinary degrees, but whipping crack the best. Chefing, hard times taught lessons. Praying every night to pull up in park Benzes. What's my home is what you call trenches. You wouldn't last a day seeing life through all lenses. It's all tension, no sun, and rain and plenty. Full-time job, still can never make a penny. I ain't rapping for clout.